Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to the Married with Reynas podcast. I am Reyna. This is my handsome husband, JR. And we're so excited to be hopping into our second episode of the podcast. So get ready. We're going to jump right into it.
I wanted to start off by reading a verse in the Bible, if you can follow with me. Matthew 5, verse 27. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery," but I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out, throw it away, for it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body go into hell. So what this is saying here, not literally, but Jesus is saying, it's a very popular verse for many of us that have read this. If you have an issue that's causing you to sin, it's better that you rip out your eye. Just take it out. So go ahead and do it right now. Just take it out and throw it away. No, but if something is causing us to sin, then it's saying that it's better to do away with that, be rid of it, so that we don't completely fall. So I wanted to lead that off really just because we wanted to have some biblical backing to what we speak about today. And these can be sensitive topics to a lot of us, really. And I know for me personally, I grew up watching sports at a really young age. Movies, I think you too. Well, we all did. And some of my first memories as a child, I remember I was talking to you about this, was boxing. I remember we would watch boxing, all the old Tyson fights. Those were the really popular ones, the heavyweight fights. And it started out with boxing for me, and that's your in ear, not in.
Good.
And it moved on to football in the early 90s. I was a Cowboy fan. My uncles introduced me to that. I was probably maybe 9 or 10. And then obviously the Mavericks. But I think the Mavericks, I was a fan of them probably since the 80s. My dad took me to see the Mavericks, as you can see on my hat here. But those three sports there were probably the primary sports that I grew up watching. And I can remember those sports, in particular, boxing. There was a recent fight that we saw. A lot of us saw this fight on Netflix. Those of us that actually could watch it without the lagging issues that we were having all night long. But I remember that fight, and it wasn't just male fighters either. So there were a couple of female fighters as well.
They were like the only highlight for me, honestly.
The co-main event. That fight was really impressive.
Yeah.
It was great. I loved it. But if you notice, there was the letter girl. I guess you call them the letter girls, or
the models,
the round girls that hold up those cards. They were there, and we've all seen them. We've all seen them during fights, but they're not guys. They're women. They're women.
It's always women. Yeah.
When you go to the Cowboys game, America's Sweethearts, they're cheerleaders. They're women. They're not guys with pom-poms. They're girls with pom-poms. At the Cowboys games. Mavericks, they don't have them anymore, but they used to have the Maverick dancers, but still they had them.
Yeah.
And that's a common thing that's going on here that I'm alluding to, is that they are entertainment for guys in particular. You know, even though girls watch sports, but the majority of us guys were watching and we're seeing the cheerleaders, the dancers, the letter girls, and it's almost like you can't miss it. You have to see it. Like you're seeing it, and you're seeing
in
it
the
on
camera
TV.
angles too. Like they very intentionally. We were kind of joking about it when we were watching that fight.
Yeah.
But they like zoom in and like make sure that a certain body part on the female is like in the center of the view, and it's always there, and they're wearing the smallest, tightest clothes. So it's very obvious what the intention is there. Yeah.
So that's one example there that I wanted to first bring up when we're talking about sports, because that's one of the things that I noticed early on as a kid. As I stated before, I was watching them at a really young age. So these are things that I was seeing at a young age.
And even the young girls too. You can think about when I was younger, I wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. Like that was the goal, the dream. That's what all of the young girls wanted to do. And I just think obviously we're not saying like don't watch sports, don't go to the games, that kind of thing. But honestly, it's just so unnecessary to begin with. So I have a personal beef with it now as a believer versus back then, because it did a lot of damage to me too. Like mentally comparing myself to these professional dancers and models and everything. But anyways.
I do have a point. There is a point coming here. Sports are not bad, obviously. The Cowboys are not bad. Jerry Jones was a good owner. I think that we're not doing too well right now, but that's for another topic. The Mavericks are not bad. Boxing is not bad. But there are struggles that men go through. Let's be real about that. And we can talk addiction, we can talk temptation, we can talk just flaws. And as believers, even just not even from a non-biblical standpoint, I can even talk this from a non-biblical standpoint. Why do they have those things visually for us to see? Why? What is the reason? Mm-hmm. Because they know that it sells. They know that it sells. Entertainment, it sells. So they know that they're onto something, and it's been that way for so long. It's for a very long time. It's been that way, and what I'm trying to say is that for guys, we should be cognizant of our surroundings, especially if it's something that we struggle in, if it's something that we have struggled in the past. I'm a firm believer of looking away. Doing things, if it's causing you to be lust, or it's causing you to sin, or to tempt you to do something, whatever that may be, sometimes you just gotta shut it off.
Right.
If it's like what we do sometimes, when I went to a game, we would go to the game, and when those cheerleaders would come on that screen, that big old huge board, you can't miss it. It's a huge screen. Those of you that have gone to a game. I would just physically look down or go to the restroom somewhere else. I mean, if it's a problem, not that it was a problem, but I just don't want to look at it.
Well, just to like avoid that.
I don't want to look at it.
Yeah, to just kind of like avoid that temptation and just not put it in your mind, because
when we were watching the game, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. When we were watching the game, the boxing match, when they were showing those round girls, we would change the channel or flip it. It's just not needed. If you can help the situation, you can change the channel, you can flip it.
Right.
You're not going to avoid that everywhere you go, obviously. But if you can help it, try to do something about it.
Just be conscious of it, and, understand how certain things affect your partner, because, we're a team. There's no secrets between us. We know what we've struggled with in the past. We're very open about that. Not that you do struggle with that, but just in general, I wouldn't want to put something on that would tempt you to do something or lead you down a path that you've already been healed and redeemed from. It just doesn't make any sense. So with the sports entertainment, obviously that's just like the very tip, and like sports is just kind of touching the surface of it. But we're going to dive in even deeper and talk even more, like break down a couple of different other topics. For women, I think romance novels are a very big temptation, and a lot of women don't even see it as an issue because you're not physically seeing something like adult film. Like, it's not right there in front of you. You're more visualizing it in your mind. But the thing is, that's still a form of lust, and it's still a form of temptation. You're even idolizing that in some circumstances. There's certain books and characters that women, maybe not even just like the adult novel type of book, maybe it's more of the romance side, just a sweet romantic book like Pride and Prejudice, my favorite book of all time. but you're idolizing that relationship, and subconsciously maybe you're comparing your spouse to them and thinking that they're not doing enough because you see this guy, Mr. Darcy, who in current times would be like a billionaire, and he's doing all of these sweet gestures for her and her family, and or maybe it's something else that you're watching, or I don't know, just several different ways that it can kind of lead you as women. For us, I think it's not as much physical seeing things, it's more emotional ways that the enemy can really creep in and kind of, tear at the marriage, just kind of put those thoughts and temptations in there and that doubt and cause division. So just being mindful about what you're reading and think about, like, am I comparing my partner to this? Is this something that's not healthy for us? Not that Pride and Prejudice is that for me. It's just an example because it's my favorite book.
We watch it once a year.
And the movie, yes. We actually didn't watch it this year.
We didn't.
I know. We need to watch it.
We're going to watch it right now. But no, I agree. For guys, it's a little different. There's some guys I'm sure that I don't know any that read romance novels. I'm not one of them. But I did want to go back. I forgot to mention, though, this kind of goes in hand with it because I know I experienced it, and I know a lot of guys still experience it. So back to the sports, we'll go to another topic in a second here, but back to that sports while I'm thinking of it. Sometimes we can't go to the game. We don't want to watch it at home. I know I've been invited before. We've been invited to go to a place to watch it, right?
Right.
And I know we've gone to places to watch it, just random restaurants to watch it. But sometimes us guys, us buddies, will try to meet up somewhere that is a popular hangout joint for men, unfortunately.
Oh, the place that has wings?
Yeah, that place that has wings. And there's like an owl as a mascot, I think.
Yeah.
Not really sure the name of it. No, I know the name of it. You guys know the name of it. That was one joint that we'd go to. There was another barbecue joint that we went to. And there's even another place, kind of a twin something. You guys know what I'm talking about.
They just get like worse and worse as you just
What I'm trying to say is that just be mindful of where you go. Like, we're talking about something that sells in the entertainment and sports industry, something that sells. What sells? We look at something, guys see it, we're drawn to it. Even if you don't have an addiction or you don't have an issue with it, you don't think you do, you're still going and you're still looking at it. Just don't go. Just don't look at it.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, you're paying these companies to basically profit off of these women, and you're telling them it's okay. Even if you order it to go, we were kind of joking about that. Like, oh, I love their wings, I'm just going to order them to go so I don't have to, deal with the whole thing. You're still paying a company that doesn't have great morals. And unfortunately, a lot of these women, I know some women that actually worked there, and some of the stuff that they had to deal with in the establishment. And then on top of that, some of the surgeries and stuff like that they would kind of, incentivize them to get. It's just not cool. It's not cool.
Yeah, that's why I read the verse at the beginning. I wanted to touch upon that because it talked about the guys are like, well, we're just looking, that's all. I've heard a lot of my friends say, well, we're just looking, we're not touching. But unfortunately, that's not the way it works.
I have one to piggyback off of that too, if you're okay.
Yeah.
So in Proverbs, I'm going to be reading in Proverbs 5 on avoiding seduction. I'm going to hop down to verse 3. So, though the lips of the forbidden woman drip honey and her words are smoother than oil, in the end she's as bitter as wormwood and as sharp as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death and her steps head straight for Sheol. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Sheol. Somebody will correct me in the comments, I'm sure. She doesn't consider the path of life. She doesn't know that her ways are unstable, and it basically just continues down. And it's a warning, right? It's a warning to be careful and mindful of who you're putting yourself around. And obviously this is talking about adultery, but Jesus taught us that even looking and thinking is committing adultery as well with that person. So we just need to be mindful and not fall into that trap of temptation. It's evil. It's it can spiral from there. Like just little things that we allow to seep in can really cause those seeds of doubt, those seeds of, division in relationships. And it's just not healthy. And it continues in Proverbs. This is one of my favorite ones, right underneath that. So we're going to hop down to 15, enjoy marriage. I'm going to read this one. And those of you that are immature, it's okay to laugh. Cause we're going to be talking about some steamy things straight from the Bible. Let your fountain be blessed and take pleasure in the wife of your youth, a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast always satisfy you. Be lost in her love forever. Forever. I'm over here stumbling over my words. But all of that to say, the Lord put us together for a reason, right? We don't need to be sitting around thinking about other things, other people, and allowing ourselves to be tempted when we have something so beautiful right here between us. And we need to guard that and protect that and fight for that. And yeah,
it's not something that was, maybe people don't think it's a huge deal. Maybe they're like, oh, we've seen this in boxing. We've seen this at the Cowboy games. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But it actually is, because it does go deeper with a lot of other things. As I just talked about with sports, that's where I started watching as a young kid. Where you go to eat, it's everywhere, and I know that you can't avoid everything. And for those of you that are listening or watching that are believers, the reasons and the what can lead to that. And those of you that are not believers, or maybe they're not religious, like I said, there's a lot of other aspects of it as well. Not just when you're married, but even when you're single.
That's so true.
In preparation, when you're looking for somebody, it creates unhealthy habits. And again, that's something that a whole other topic we can talk about as far as addictions. But
well, we're going to talk about movies anyways.
Yeah.
And how that can kind of play into it too, because it's almost like a snowball effect. We're not saying don't watch sports, don't go out to eat, don't go to the pool, those kind of things. Just be mindful, right, about how you're going to guard your own heart and how you're going to guard your partner. Exactly. Just be aware and be mindful. But it kind of can turn into like a snowball thing, because you get desensitized to it. I mean, it's everywhere. It's on billboards and movie theaters, like everywhere you go, it's just dripping with it. And one of those things I think is film and even shows. Like they've been coming out with so many shows that are like high quality. For instance, Game of Thrones, like that was a huge show. And then I think that was geared more towards the guys. And then you add to that, the newer one for girls is Bridgerton. And I really liked the show for a while because I was so into those period pieces, and I would fast forward through the steamy scenes. But the thing is, like that after season 2 that I was like, I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I just felt so gross. Like, why does this even have to be here? Like, why can't we just have the sweet love stories and all these other things without sprinkling in all of the extra steamy scenes? I just can't deal with it. And that can lead to other things, like kind of what we're alluding to with adult film and those horrible statistics that we talked about on there. I think, did you have something you wanted to mention first before I go into mine?
Well, I checked out a couple of websites. There's all over.
What kind of websites?
Statistics, not bad websites.
Kidding.
I checked a couple of statistical websites because I wanted to see what exactly was being targeted, who was being targeted. So rather than just over here and get behind a mic or a camera and just say this is something that men are attracted to, or we get distracted by, or I don't want to just sit here and say, this is something that you cannot do. No, you don't need to do that. No, there are also statistics to support that, just to show you who's targeted and how we're targeted. So I went to Statista, I believe. Statista is a website, one of the websites I checked out. This was a study that they did, or a survey, I should say, that they did in March of 2022 for male online users. in the United States. And from 18 years to 29 years old, 44% in that month, within the past month when this was conducted, were online users looking at adult websites. Between the ages of 30 and 49 years, it was 57%. 50 years old to 64 years old, 44%. And then 65 and up, 26%. And there was also another site, FHE Health. As of July 21st, 2024, 70% of men ages 18 to 34 visit an adult site in a typical month. And just to throw this out there, 10 to 14 billion spent annually. So yes, guys are being targeted. Guys, they know us guys. And we all know the common saying that we're attracted visually. You can check out the scientific data behind that supports that, how we're attracted visually. But that's the truth of the matter. It's very scary that at a young age, 18 to 29-year-olds, 44% have visited an adult site.
And those are just the people that admitted.
That did that survey, that actual.
Yeah. That admitted to it in that survey.
And then 1 in 6 women, it said on that site too, by the way, 1 in 6 women also struggle with adult sites.
And that's such a true thing, because we've talked about this before. That was something that I struggled with before we were together. Like, that's something that I had to overcome, and the Lord really delivered me from that. But I want to jump off of that, if you're okay, on some statistics on the darker side of those things. So I don't know if a lot of you guys are aware of some of my history and some things that I've gone through, but I have such a heart and passion for women and even men and children that have been abused or have gone through trauma, because I myself have gone through that. So I've known for years like how dark the industry is, but even more recent statistics are coming out. Lawsuits are coming out about these companies and what's happening behind closed doors. So you can look up online. You can just go online. Their human trafficking hotline. If you look up human trafficking hotline, they've identified adult film as the top ranked industry for sex trafficking in 2022. So this is older statistics, however, still pretty relevant, pretty new. Some statistics have shown as high as 80% of the actors in these films are actually being trafficked. 80%. And that's only the ones that they're able to like verify. Add another level to that you have a lot of these websites, they don't verify age, consent, anybody can upload. They're having all these lawsuits come out about children being on there, and then also people being on there against their will. And it's really disgusting, in my opinion. It's just something that I feel like we need to do a better job at. And one way that you can do that is by just not consuming it to begin with, and maybe speaking with your spouse, your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever it is, and just like making that commitment together to not help feed that industry. Because yeah, it's already unbiblical, it's sinful, it can create a lot of damage in your marriage, but it's also very dark, and we shouldn't be doing that. And I've heard the argument about how women empowerment, they're making money, stop trying to like make them be bad and everything. But again, that's another layer of just covering up the darkness that is happening in the industry. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then we already obviously know about some of the stuff that happens in Hollywood, and that's come to light recently with a lot of these entertainers that have filmed things, for instance, like Game of Thrones. We talked about that, how they didn't even want to do those scenes, and they basically felt like they had to. So that's my piece.
I think that is one of the topics that we will go into depth at another time as well. That's a really, it's a scary topic actually, because of what that can lead to. And again, a lot of people I've talked to, they say, "Oh, this is not a problem. It's not a problem for me. I don't have an issue with that." But it is for somebody else. And then also, if you're promoting it, it's feeding it. Like Reyna just said, you are contributing to that growth, which helps promote that industry. And there's a lot of dark things associated with that industry. Again, biblical standpoint, even non-biblical standpoint, a lot of psychological things that I've seen, patterns that stem from that. So something to think about. Definitely something to think about.
And that one, I would be as bold to say is like, don't watch adult film. I mean, you can do whatever you want. We're not going to sit here and condemn you, but I wouldn't even risk opening up that doorway into your life, because both of us, I'm not trying to expose you, but we've both been set free from that. And it's very damaging for your mental health and for your relationship when you're starting, to overcome that. It can be very damaging to your relationship, and it's just not worth it. It's really not worth it. There's a verse, I can't remember. I thought I wrote it down.
Also, while you're looking that up.
Yeah, go for it.
I remember a lot of times I'd hear this from preachers, speakers, and they talk about, the dangers of this, the dangers of looking at certain movies and whatnot. And I know it's difficult when we watch shows and movies. And one of the things that we do as a couple, we'll try to read reviews. We'll try to watch online previews, but reviews. And especially, I would suggest working on this, even if you're not married yet, start developing these habits of what you watch, what you're putting into your mind visually, and whether it be shows or movies. And it's, yes, there is an art to it, but there's a lot of it that's unnecessary, just unnecessary. And if you can try to look at reviews to start working on great habits, because when you do, if you're single, I'm speaking, if you do find somebody and you do get married, you want to create those healthy habits early on, so that you can bring that into your marriage. Especially as guys, we got to be disciplined, because we're leading our families. We have to be disciplined. You're leading your wife. When you have children, teach them great habits, what you watch. Don't just let them watch whatever they want on TV. Just throw an iPad in front of them, because we use iPad not as much. We try not to, but sometimes it happens. We monitor it, though. And I know a lot of parents will agree, you've got to monitor what's on there, because you have no idea what they're watching. Even Netflix, we have Netflix, but you have to monitor it because they have ads.
Well, we'll go more into that.
But that's something to talk on another subject, but I just wanted to throw it out there because it's on the topic of entertainment.
I did find the verse. So in 1 Corinthians 7:2, it talks about, but because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman her own husband. So basically, to make sure that you're not sinning, that's one of the amazing reasons that the Lord created marriage, is we get to have that kind of fun, and we don't have to worry about ourselves, being led into sin. But being married in modern times, you also have to be mindful about what you're letting in and what you're letting enter into your marriage and relationships. So that's really why we wanted to share today's topic. We also want to mention phones, cell phones, just scrolling in general. There's several apps, Instagram, TikTok. I don't know all the other new apps too, but those are like the two main ones that I would say can be very damaging and very easy to slip into sin because of what the algorithm will throw at you. Even just starting, like I deleted TikTok. Do you remember I downloaded it and then I deleted it after the first hour because of all the disgusting stuff they were throwing at me as soon as I downloaded the app.
Yeah.
I was like, I just can't do that. Oh, and Snapchat.
Well, even if you don't have an account, I've seen through TikTok, you can still look at some videos, but there's just junk all over it.
Yeah, it's super saturated. So just being mindful about that. And if it's something that can lead you into temptation, delete the app. Or obviously it's an algorithm too. So if you're looking at things, it's going to start feeding more of that to you because it knows you're watching it. So just be careful.
I would say, guys, I'm targeting guys. Whenever you have an app like TikTok, I wouldn't even suggest having TikTok, honestly. But if you have Facebook, if you have Instagram, that's entirely up to you how you wanna present that to your partner if you're married. This is not something that you have to do, but this is just another tool, another suggestion that we do. We know each other's passwords.
I do think everybody should.
We don't. Now, I've seen a lot of couples have the same
Like joint
Facebook.
accounts.
Like it'll say your name and my name together. That's cool too. But we have our own, but we also know our own passwords.
Yeah.
And if I were to give her my cell phone, she'd go through whatever she wanted to go through, texts, pictures, whatever. Snapchat. Guys, I don't think we should have Snapchat. That's just my personal opinion. You can take that for what it is, but why would you have a program that takes a picture then deletes it? Like,
yeah,
think about
deletes
that.
your
That's
messages.
Entertaining the idea of trouble.
You're opening
Just
up a door.
Avoid it altogether.
Yeah.
Avoid it altogether if you can. Avoid it. And Facebook, guys, I keep talking to you guys because, man, these are things that I've learned early on. And when you get married, you really shouldn't be going on to other people's pages, opposite sex primarily, and just looking on there. Even if you have the greatest of intentions, if you can avoid that, just don't do it, because you don't know what the other person's posting. You don't know what they're doing. Who knows if you comment on their picture and then they respond back. It's kind of a very touchy subject. A lot of people will disagree with that, but be mindful again. Be mindful of who
and
you talk
in
to,
communication.
who you comment. Be in communication.
Be open. And if you are in a relationship, in a marriage, I know you said you leave it up to them, but I truly think that there should be no secrets. Like,
Absolutely
why else are you
not.
married to somebody if you're going to have like your own private account, but you're not going to let them see it and you get defensive? Like, I just don't think it's wise, and it's not protecting your marriage, and you're creating a lot of distrust. Even if nothing's going on, you're creating distrust in your marriage, and it's not healthy.
I was reading a passage earlier this week. I was reading in I believe it was Samuel, and we all know the story of David. A lot of us know that story and how great of a ruler he was. And it was interesting because the book that I'm reading, I think it's Dr. Gene Getz, the QR Bible. I think that's his name. Awesome. Love it. He has these principles that he goes by, and I love it because he goes in depth and explains how even when you're successful, like David was, he was still vulnerable. You're thinking, man, he's successful. Usually you're vulnerable when you're down, right? But no, he was vulnerable even when he was successful, because he had conquered everybody. He had riches. He had his kingdom.
Right.
But he was almost like he was bored. He was bored, and he saw this beautiful woman, Bathsheba. And we all know the story, what happens with that, what he did. And he lusted after her. He lusted. It was a weakness of his. He lusted after her. Just by looking at her, he already committed sin. He looked, because he was plotting something.
And he just layered it.
And he got himself in a position. And the reason I bring this up is because so many of us can relate to that, how we get tempted, but he acted on it and he committed sin. And he was one of the most well-known characters in the Bible. God had a plan for him and used him. And as powerful as he was, he still fell. And there were consequences for what he did. God definitely forgave him. God will forgive you for anything you've done. But there were some severe consequences for what he did, and it carried on down to his family that we read. So it has adverse effects as well. And I just thought it was really interesting because I had never really heard it presented that way. You were vulnerable even when you're successful, like David was.
I feel like it's even more you see about these like celebrity pastors and how easy it is for them to fall into temptation. And yeah, I don't want to say it's easier because he was a man after God's own heart, right? But at the same time, he had all this opportunity there. It was like an open door for him. He had all this power. So yeah, it's all around.
Yeah, and I know, and just some positivity here, some encouragement too. When we fail, or I should say when we sin and we do, if we've lusted in our past, we've looked at something in our past, we've done things in our past, there is hope. Like God, and he specifically talks about it too. I'll bring this up here. This verse that I was reading, I believe it was in Corinthians. It was Corinthians 10:11. I'll read it real quick here. But it says here, and I like this because it says, now these things happened to them. Paul's talking here. Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages has come. Therefore, let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it.
That's good.
So God knows our hearts. He knows what we can handle. He's also going to equip us to be able to overcome it and flee from it, and he'll forgive us for that. But most importantly, I think that it was, and I was also reading one of the Psalms of David, because I wanted to see how he understood his sin, because a lot of times we commit that sin and we're not, I can't say that we're not sincere about it, but a lot of times we're like, oh God, sorry I did that. Okay, forgive me, Lord, forgive me. But it elaborated on how David felt when he committed that sin in the Psalms, and he talks about how David his heart was broken. He said, "My heart is broken. Lord, will you forgive me for this broken heart?" And he was devastated. It talked in depth how messed up he gotten over that. He lost his son. It was horrible, but I just love how God had grace over him. Mm-hmm. He had grace over him, so he can forgive and have grace over anyone for anything you've done.
Exactly. And we're not here to create judgment or anything like that, but more so to help inspire, hold you accountable, and put you in the right direction. We've been married 10 years and we've gone through stuff. We've experienced things, we've learned, and we may not have had the tools that we needed at the beginning, but we were able to work through it together because we made that agreement that we were going to. And, if we can help you guys to just be ahead of the game, maybe you're newly married, or maybe you've been married a while and you have just been doing the same thing for a while. Maybe this is a new take and something that can challenge you in your marriage. I think that this can be helpful for so many people, and it would have been really helpful for us to hear it at the beginning of our marriage. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. We really felt it on our heart to share this message and hope it blesses you. If you have questions, please feel free to reach us in the comments down below.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for watching and listening.